It was the kind of building that felt permanently damp, with narrow hallways and a sour mildew smell that clung to your hair. But it was all I could afford. I was a young woman, only 23, fresh from a breakup that left me needing a place of my own. Any place, really. The landlord seemed overly eager to sign me on. The last tenant moved out suddenly, he told me, tapping the lease papers twice with his pen. His smile never reached his eyes. I tried not to think too hard about it. I needed somewhere cheap, and this was it. My first few days there were spent unpacking boxes, arranging secondhand furniture, and trying to make the place feel like mine. The living room was cramped but cozy. My bedroom window looked out over an alley that was mostly silent at night, except for the occasional bottle clinking or stray cat fight. I kept the blinds closed. On the fourth night, I woke to a faint sound, like someone whispering. Groggy, I sat up and listened. It was coming from outside my window, hushed and breathy, almost like two people having a secret conversation. I convinced myself it was just neighbors, even though my window faced a blank brick wall. The next morning, I tried to laugh it off. I hadn't been sleeping well anyway. Probably stress. New apartment, new job, still nursing heartbreak. I started noticing small things. My coffee mugs weren't where I left them. The bathroom door would be slightly ajar when I was sure I'd closed it. Once I came home to find my bedroom light on. Maybe I was just forgetful, distracted by work emails and endless scrolling on my phone. That was easier to accept than the alternative. But the whispering didn't stop. Some nights, it seemed to come from right beneath my window. I'd press my ear against the cool glass, straining to make out words. It was always just out of reach, tantalizingly close to clear. I started leaving a light on. It made me feel childish, but I didn't care. Sleep was hard enough to come by without imagining people standing outside, talking about me. A week in, I found something that made my stomach drop. Near my front door, tucked behind the shoe rack, was a folded scrap of paper. I thought it was trash at first, something tracked in on my shoe. But when I picked it up and unfolded it, my hand started to shake. In jagged, frantic handwriting were the words, "It watches you when you sleep." I stood there clutching the note. My breath caught in my throat. The apartment seemed to close in around me, every shadow darker, every creak sharper. I scanned the room, half expecting someone to step out from behind the couch. But there was no one, just me and the humming refrigerator. Trying to calm down, I told myself it could be a prank. Maybe the last tenant had a weird sense of humor, left it behind to mess with whoever came next. But it felt too deliberate, hidden behind my shoes. Like someone had slipped it under my door recently. I shoved the paper deep into the trash, washed my hands, and tried to shake it off. That night, though, I barely slept. A few days later, I woke around 2 a.m. to a soft, scraping sound. My heart stuttered. I lay completely still, straining to hear. There it was again, a dragging, scratching noise coming from outside my bedroom window. Summoning every ounce of courage, I tiptoed over and peeked through a gap in the blinds. The alley was empty. Just a faint glow from the security light on the far end. No one there. I told myself it was probably a stray raccoon or cat. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been looking right back at me, watching me watch them. I started noticing other odd things. A faint, almost sweet smell, like rotting fruit, that would drift through the apartment at night. My bathroom mirror fogged up even when I hadn't showered, with strange streaks running down the glass. One morning, I found the hallway light on, though I was certain I'd turned it off before bed. I wondered if I was losing my mind, the stress making me careless and paranoid. Out of desperation, I called my friend Sita. She was the type who believed in spirits and bad energy. When I told her everything, she didn't laugh. Her voice dropped. "That place feels wrong. You need to be careful. Burn some sage. Or even better, come stay with me a few nights." I almost did, but pride got in the way. I told her I'd be fine, that I was probably overreacting. After we hung up, I sat on my couch in the dim light, hugging my knees, replaying every strange thing that had happened. The whispering, the note, the creeping certainty that I wasn't alone. That night, just as I was drifting to sleep, I heard it again. Voices right outside my window, murmuring low and urgent. My blood ran cold when I realized I could finally understand one of the words. It was my name. I didn't sleep after that. I lay there rigid, clutching my blanket like a lifeline, my ears straining for more. The whispering eventually faded, leaving only the hollow thud of my racing heartbeat. When the first light of dawn broke through the blinds, I finally exhaled, though it felt like I'd aged years in a single night. The next day at work, I could barely concentrate. My manager pulled me aside to ask if I was okay. "You look pale," she said delicately. I forced a smile, blaming it on allergies, but inside my thoughts churned. What if I really was losing it? Or worse, what if someone was trying to make me think I was? That evening, determined to get answers, I knocked on the door of my neighbor across the hall. An older woman answered, wearing a pink housecoat and slippers. Her name was Boo Ratna. When I cautiously asked if she'd ever heard anything strange, voices at night, people hanging around the building, her face clouded. "You're in 3B, right?" she asked quietly. I nodded. She hesitated, glanced up and down the hallway, then leaned closer. "The last girl who lived there?" She left very suddenly, packed a suitcase in the middle of the night, never came back for the rest of her things. A chill ran down my spine. Did she ever say why? She kept saying someone was watching her through the window, but it's an alley, nothing there but walls. Bhuratna sighed, as if trying to brush off an old superstition. "Maybe it's just this place. Bad energy. The building's old. A lot of people come and go." I thanked her, though my mind was buzzing with alarm. That night, I decided to be brave. I propped myself by the window with the lights off, phone camera ready, hoping to catch whoever was whispering. Hours passed. My eyelids drooped. Then a soft tap, like fingernails on glass. My eyes snapped open. Slowly, with shaking hands, I peeled back the blinds. My breath hitched. Just inches away, on the other side of the glass, was a face. Pale, sunken eyes locked on mine, lips curling into a grotesque grin. I screamed, stumbling backward, knocking over a lamp. By the time I scrambled up and flipped on the light, the window was empty. No one was there. My phone, still clutched in my hand, showed only darkness where I'd aimed it, but I could still feel those eyes on me, long after they were gone. I didn't sleep at all that night. I left every light in the apartment blazing, sat curled up on my couch with a kitchen knife in my lap. Every creak of the walls, every whisper of wind against the building made me flinch. When dawn finally broke, it felt like a rescue. By then, I was done pretending this was stress or imagination. I called my landlord, demanding to know if there had been any incidents. Break-ins, prowlers, anything. He sounded annoyed. "Miss, this is Jakarta. If you're scared, get better locks. It's not my problem." Then he hung up on me. That afternoon, I decided to search the apartment more carefully. I pulled furniture away from walls, checked inside closets, under the bed. In the bedroom closet, behind a loose panel, I found a narrow gap. Heart pounding, I shone my phone flashlight into it. On the dusty floor inside lay more scraps of paper, torn pages from a diary. With trembling hands, I unfolded one. The handwriting was frantic, looping over itself. "He stands outside at night." I hear him calling my name. Sometimes I think he's inside already, watching me from the corners. Another rid. I tried to leave, but I always come back. It's like he's pulling me here. I dropped the papers, nausea rising in my throat. This was the last tenant. She hadn't left notes as a joke. She was terrified. And now it was happening to me. That night, determined not to be alone, I called Sita again and begged her to come over. She didn't hesitate. By 9 p.m., she was sitting cross-legged on my living room rug with a bundle of sage, waving smoke into the corners while muttering prayers. It made me feel foolish, but also strangely comforted. Then, just after midnight, the air changed. It grew heavy, almost hard to breathe. Sita's chanting faltered. From the direction of my bedroom, we both heard it, a low, rasping voice that stretched out my name. Sita grabbed my hand so tight her nails dug into my skin. "Don't answer," she whispered. "Don't even look." But it was too late. My eyes were already locked on the dark hallway, where a figure was beginning to emerge, impossibly tall, its limbs bending wrong, head cocked at an unnatural angle. My blood ran ice cold. The figure paused in the doorway, as if savoring our fear. Then it smiled. The smile on its face was the worst part, stretched too wide, teeth too small and crowded. Its eyes were deep pits that seemed to pull the light from the room. Sita squeezed my hand harder. I could hear her whispering prayers under her breath, her voice shaking. The figure stood there for a heartbeat that felt like an eternity. Then it took a single step forward. The air grew icy. My breath fogged. I tried to move, to run, but my legs refused. It felt like something was pressing down on my shoulders, rooting me in place. It took another step, closer. I could see the texture of its skin, grayish, mottled like mold. When it spoke, its voice rasped directly into my mind. "Why do you lock your windows? I was always inside." I let out a strangled sob. Sita began chanting louder, waving the smoking sage in frantic circles. The creature recoiled slightly, its smile faltering, as if annoyed by the scent. It tilted its head, studying us. Then it shrieked, a high, jagged wail that vibrated through my bones. I clapped my hands over my ears. The lights in the apartment flickered violently, buzzing like they'd explode. Sita didn't stop chanting. Tears streamed down her face, but she kept going, louder, stronger. The sage smoke thickened, curling through the living room in dense clouds. The thing staggered back, claws clutching at its head. Its mouth opened impossibly wide, revealing a gaping black void that seemed to swallow the light. Suddenly, it turned and fled down the hallway, vanishing into my bedroom with a sound like tearing fabric. The moment it disappeared, the apartment fell silent. The pressure lifted from my shoulders. I collapsed to my knees, sobbing in relief. Sita dropped beside me, pulling me into a shaking hug. Neither of us spoke for a long time. When we finally stood, I felt like I was walking through water, heavy and unsteady. We spent the rest of the night on the couch with every light on, clutching mugs of sweet tea with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. At sunrise, we gathered every last scrap of those old diary pages, the note that had been left for me, and burned them in a pot on the stove. As the paper crumbled into ash, I felt something loosen, like a knot inside me coming undone. I wasn't sure if it was over, but for the first time in weeks, I could breathe without feeling like someone was watching. After that terrible night, everything changed. The apartment felt hollow, like the echo of something finally gone. Sita stayed with me for 3 more days, refusing to let me be alone. We cleaned every corner, opened all the windows to let the sun pour in. I bought fresh flowers, burned more sage, sprinkled salt across the thresholds, anything to keep the darkness away. And it worked. Slowly, the heavy, suffocating feeling lifted. The walls seemed to breathe again. The strange smells vanished. I could walk through the hallway without my skin crawling. Even the whispering at my window stopped. At night, there was only the distant hum of traffic, the soft rustle of wind. For the first time since I moved in, the silence was just that. Silence. A week later, I decided to see Boo Ratna again. I brought her a small box of sweet cakes to thank her for her warnings. She opened her door with a warm, knowing smile. "You look lighter," she said, tapping my shoulder gently. "Whatever was here, it's gone now, isn't it?" I nodded, tears unexpectedly pricking my eyes. "I think so. I hope so." "Good, don't be afraid to make this place yours now. Fill it with life. Laughter keeps shadows away." So I did. I started inviting friends over for dinner, filling my little apartment with chatter and music. I hung cheerful curtains, planted herbs on the windowsill. At night, I lit soft candles and let myself unwind, no longer flinching at every sound. Sometimes I still thought I saw a shadow linger in the corner of my eye, or caught the faintest whisper when the wind rustled the blinds. But it was just enough to remind me to keep my space bright, my heart open, and my friends close. Months passed. The nightmares faded. I found a new rhythm, a new strength. Even love crept back in. Gentle, patient, nothing like the heartbreak that had first brought me here. I learned that sometimes the scariest places can become safe again once you've faced down the darkness and survived. One night, curled up on my couch with the windows open to let in the warm breeze, I closed my eyes and realized I wasn't scared anymore. The apartment was just a home now, full of little pieces of my life. And finally, I slept soundly. No voices at the window, no eyes watching me in the dark. Just peaceful dreams and the soft promise of morning.